Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. And if you are just tuning in with me for the very first time, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm really glad you're here with me today. I am your host, Heather Carey, nutritionist, chef, mom, and a woman who has been around the block with food. I want to open up about real food in relation to health, weight, and our bodies so you can make peace with what you eat. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Real Food Stories podcast. I know that as time goes on, I am leaning into a season of my life that is very future focused. What my purpose is and how do I go about realizing that? How do I want to live a healthy life? Is it just what happens when we start to get older? I think so, because I know I'm not alone in this. I have friends and clients who are feeling exactly the same way as I am. So today we're going to dive into a topic that so many of us think about, but often avoid until it's staring us in the face. And that is, what does the next chapter of our lives really look like? Whether you're dreaming of a slower pace or planning a big adventure or just craving more clarity and control over your future, I think this episode is going to be for you. Because Camille Walsanovich is someone who helps people, especially women, reimagine what retirement and what's next can truly mean for you, not just in terms of finances, but in purpose, possibility, and how we want to live. So before we get into all the details, let me tell you a little bit more about Camille. After a successful and magical 35-year career with Disney, Camille is now dedicated to her passion project, My Aspirement, which is a global movement reimagining retirement for women. Camille is a certified master coach with a master's in human resources from Rollins College, complemented by a bachelor's in psychology from the University of Central Florida. And during her time at Disney, Camille excelled in various operations and human resource leadership roles and played a pivotal role in establishing the Women's Inclusion Network, the first women's employee resource group at Walt Disney World. Her extensive experience in executive coaching, coupled with her transformative work at Disney, has made her a catalyst for unlocking potential in individuals, teams, and organizations. Camille is energized by the infinite possibilities available to women pursuing their aspirations, and her vision is simple yet powerful. Every woman deserves to become, believe in, and share her best self with the world in ways that are uniquely hers. I love that. So, hello, Camille. How are you today?
Hi, great. Hi, Heather.
So, let's just jump in and talk about a little bit about your journey. I want to hear a little bit about your magical 35-year career and then what made you decide to pivot and transition to create your own space, My Aspirement, to help other women.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I started at Disney on a college internship at a really, time of growth at Disney. So I got promoted pretty quickly through the ranks in operations and had a chance to play many different roles. I grew up in a military family, so that was ideal because I love doing different things. One of them including Open Disneyland Paris. So I was there for 6 months or so in Paris. And after some time in operations, I was put on a special project around managing labor, which is a huge, big deal at Walt Disney World, which would also kind of move me into the HR ranks. So had a chance to support many parts of the business in human resources, including Disney advertising out of New York and all the businesses they have across the country. So really just a lot of great opportunities. I had a great career. I loved everything about working for Disney. But like anything else, corporate, it's a lot. And it's a lot to be doing it while you're raising a family and everything else. So I always just envisioned a time in my life when I knew I might have an opportunity to do something different. And when I went looking for it at about the age 50, I knew my timeline. I wasn't necessarily sharing that with anybody else, but I went looking for something in that space to help me make the transition and I couldn't find it. So my aspirement was really born out of something that I was looking for and couldn't find, and the research that showed there wasn't anything out there really compelling for women.
So that's interesting. So you had a really, sounds like eventful and great career, but you're ready to move on and do something next. You're kind of having that calling, and
Mhm.
you were feeling a little lost. I think
Yep.
like so many of us,
Mhm.
and so good for you then for creating something to help other women
Right.
because we're all feeling I mean I know that I am definitely like what is my purpose in life and what's like
Mhm.
what are my next steps. So you then created a company called My Aspirement and it's tell me how then you work with women
Mhm.
to help
So
them.
some of the work and how it kind of got started, I'd been doing some work with a futurist at Disney. We were doing long-term strategic planning with our clients. But a lot of those same concepts can be used to help you plan longer term for your own personal life. So I knew that I could use some of those concepts. Meanwhile, I kind of grew up as a little bit of a neuroscience nerd, kind of following some of those concepts around gratitude and really making sure that you had kind of an eye for what your future held, et cetera. And I knew if I could put those things together and make it simple for women, that I could create something that they might actually enjoy and perhaps prioritize in their life when they're likely not prioritizing themselves much. And I wanted to organize the concepts in a way that helped them kind of rediscover themselves a little bit, then explore these facets of their life, and then help them kind of create an action plan or path or something around it. Because I think sometimes women are just overwhelmed. And you're right, purpose is such a huge part of what we all need. And again, purpose is often changing at this stage of life. So I wanted to give women, a way to pursue that, maybe, plan for what would be next.
So, what are some of the common patterns or struggles that you see in women who come to you? Especially those at like this transition. So
Mhm.
you're in your 50s,
Mhm.
like just this time of we're
Yeah.
so in between so many
Mhm.
things, right? Like we're
Mhm.
maybe transitioning out of our careers. We're just wanting something maybe not as stressful.
Mhm.
We've got aging parents. We're thinking
Mhm.
about, I mean, health issues are
Mhm.
cropping up. We're in menopause. We're like
Mhm.
all the things are like
Yeah.
happening and like we're not prepared for it.
It's sort of
Right.
a perfect storm, right? It's sort of the perfect storm. And so one of the things that we have to do that I wasn't necessarily over focused on at the beginning when I was creating it is helping women to find more about themselves. Nobody wants to hear it, but they got to do a lot of they got to do some self work. Not in like a deeply, I'm not a therapist certified kind of way, but from a coaching standpoint, helping people to kind of understand more about what their motivations are, what they really love, what they're kind of far away from, and spend some time, believing and getting to know your worthiness again, things like that. What you really do love, not for anybody else, but for yourself. So there is sort of this big notion around that. Finding that there's also a big notion around making sure you understand as you look forward where are the most maybe uncertainty and or the points at which you have areas that are of most interest as you start peeling this stuff back. There's probably one or two or three areas of your life that you want to focus on more, and that kind of tends to get overwhelm into just a little bit more order so that women can kind of build that path for themselves. But you're right. Part of it is that they're overwhelmed. They're likely not prioritizing themselves. And just like you mentioned, from a health perspective, your health's not necessarily going to wait, right? And it's probably just about in these ages that we're starting to realize that it's hard to put ourselves on the back burner much longer with any, with any length of time, for that to be for us to be super healthy into the future.
Yeah, the time is now. I think that it's like kind of the wake up call decade,
Mhm.
to get it together, like use it or lose it right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But let me just back to like the struggles. I mean, like these patterns or struggles. So overwhelm, I
Mhm.
could totally see that. I admit I definitely feel overwhelmed sometimes
Mhm.
with like, I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of unknown
Mhm.
coming up with my mother who's aging and I mean just with everything just it just feels very unknown and that feels overwhelming. What
Yeah.
other things come up? I mean that there's just too many things to think about or and to hone in.
Yeah, there's too many things. So they don't, so some of the work we do is to help women to kind of explore all these different facets when it comes to your relationships, your health. Money is not off the table, it's there, but at the same time, like what is the concept of enough? What are the things that are a part of your legacy? How do you want to deal with your stuff, physical stuff, emotional, whatever. So it's just sort of pulling apart this tight knot that just feels like a lot, kind of loosening it up a little bit and helping women to kind of see there's some things that maybe need a little bit more attention than others, and then you can put that in order. So that's part of it. And then prioritizing it in a way that allow them to, like, what do women prioritize themselves? When do they do? Maybe when they get together with their girlfriends. So a lot of it was like, how can I put them how can we meet them where they are, where they want to be anyway? And again, when women get together, they can be pretty powerful together. They enjoy being together. So I wanted to make sure there was some community in it too. If they want that, we do some coaching one-on-one. If they want that, it was about making some of what the content is pretty flexible because I want to make sure that whatever the overwhelm is or whatever their struggle is, it doesn't become an excuse for not kind of doing what they need to do in honor of themselves.
I think community is so important. I definitely wholeheartedly believe that, especially around this age. I think we can start to feel really isolated and
Yeah,
alone in
right,
this. And maybe it looks like everyone else has their act together except
right.
for us. And just dealing with all the feelings can feel very lonely. So if you know that other
Even
people are,
friendships, right? Like
yeah,
even our relationships are changing, because maybe our primary relationship are the same, but our relationships with our kids, because the way they're aging, our relationship with their parents are changing, and just helping to connect women with each other and maybe even with some resources that they don't have time to go look for that would be interesting if they were just provided with it, to explore the topics a little bit more is what our goal is.
health and wellness is definitely something that
Mhm.
I am personally
Yes.
interested in and I focus on.
Mhm.
So I want to just ask about that a little bit. Is that something that you see come up with women who are like kind of reimagining their future and their purpose is to focus on health and wellness? Because I know that there are some people, I've got some clients, I mean, they can be very resistant
Mhm.
because what was working for them back in their 30s is not really working for them now, but they don't want to like make a lot of change.
Yeah.
So, how do you work with people who are like resistant to changing?
Some of it is to envision their future in different ways. So, one of the exercises we do is to imagine their future in a couple different ways. If you stayed on this track that you are in, the way you eat, the way you sleep, whatever, what does your future look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever? And then have them create a couple other alternative futures. What would happen if you change your diet? What would happen if you change the way you exercise, whatever? What would that future begin to look like? And what are you living for? A lot of people say, well, I would want to be able to lift my grandkids. Like, what would you want that to look like? Really look like so they could kind of say, okay, well, if you want to be able to lift your kids, your grandkids at that age, what would you have to do 20 years from now? What would you have to do 10 years from now? What would you have to do five and work backwards? So the foresight concept called backcasting, to help making it a little bit doable today. So even breaking it down to something simple as researching the gym that you're going to pursue, or this week I'm going to try one new recipe because I know I can trade out something, and create what I call micro actions to help women get the confidence from having honored themselves by keeping a commitment to themselves without being overwhelming. That's just one way.
Yeah, well, I think thinking ahead into your future, I love that. I mean, I think, thinking 10 years in, 20 years in, what does your future look like if you do
Mhm.
nothing?
Right.
You've got some like health stuff happening and you do nothing about it.
Mhm.
What does that look like?
Right.
I think that's a really powerful
Mhm.
exercise to do. I mean, I feel like I've even done that for myself
Mhm.
in different ways. And yeah, knowing that like I don't want to be 75 years old and like dealing with whatever health issue, would come up
Yeah.
that I just chose to ignore.
Right.
And so I think that can be really powerful. But I also think you mentioned like, doing like micro steps, small steps, right? And to help women get unstuck kind of, or just, rather than saying like, you better get your act together because by the time you're 75, you're going to be a mess if you don't right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
not effective either. But if you just do these micro steps, like
Mhm.
try a new recipe,
Mhm.
research the gym. What do
Mhm.
you love to do, for exercise?
Mhm. Yeah.
Those kind of things, right? Does
Yeah, because
that,
I think what I find with women, particularly when it comes to health, is like one of the things that will stop us in our tracks is if we or someone else we know gets medical news that has to be immediately dealt with, right? Like, I just feel like anytime you've gotten that, call your doctor or your test results are whatever, I feel like we all just wait for that instead of just thinking, what if it wasn't waiting for that? What if we could just imagine a world where that will never happen? But I just feel like we just need other things that literally stop us in our tracks to promote a different behavior set. And it's hard. I get it. We got to, that's why I feel like community helps and accountability helps. And I don't have all the answers. I've tried lots of things too. So yeah.
yeah, no, I think that people do kind of try to dodge the bullet,
Mhm.
until it like maybe gets them. They get the lab reports. That's when
Mhm.
I see a lot of
Mhm.
clients too, is that they come to me with they've got high cholesterol or their A1C, their diabetes markers are high, and then they're now they have to
Mhm.
do something. But
Right.
yeah, if you could get them before that even happens, that would be really great too.
If they could imagine a world where that was just, their best life was still there and they could actually do something about it. And I feel like even when they get results like that, a lot of times then the treatment becomes, you're right, medical, it becomes medicinal. But food is medicine, right? So if we can help one see that sooner. A lot of it is about peeling that back all the way to the behaviors, or how did they grow up? What did food really mean in their families? How does it play out? How does it change now that you're not cooking for a family, et cetera? It's just stopping to explore some of those things, um, and giving women permission to consider what would be different.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess then that goes into like this mindset kind of
Mhm.
trait, right? I mean, there's like this, you can look at things like a couple of ways. So, I mean, what role do you think mindset plays in planning your future? I
Oh,
mean,
it's so huge. It's like the first thing. It really is the first thing because it's like, and so many women, I don't want to say they don't want to hear it, but we've got to start there. Got to kind of do some work to really help them to think about things from a point of gratitude. We got to help women think about how they are really been, when they've been successful changing something, when they haven't, so we can kind of employ some of those same strategies into whatever else has to change coming up, and really getting at helping them to explore what they really love, whether it be, to your point, what movement might they enjoy? What food do they recall enjoying? Like, how many of us have like totally changed our diets because of whatever our kids like or whatever something else is happening in our life? So mindset's huge. It's got to come first, and we do some work around it on purpose, just because everyone's going to kind of come at it from a place of curiosity and worthiness and what they deserve. I think that's it. It's huge. It's hard though. Can you imagine how hard that is for women?
yeah, no, I can because, well, especially when, I mean, you just said like worthiness. And I mean, you have to, I think, come with a sense of kindness and compassion too,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to changing your physical body,
Right.
everything. Otherwise, I'm just thinking about like women just being on and off diets
Mhm.
their whole lives. I mean, diets are so punishing,
Mhm. Mhm.
and we're used to that, right? We're used to like women, I think, are very used to like just punishing themselves on diets or like berating themselves, and that never works in the
Right.
long run, right? That's like short term
All right.
fixes. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think the mindset shift is definitely the foundation for any change,
Right.
your
I think so
health,
much about the
wellness.
work you do too around, food and nutrition and making healthy choices and how that really does help you and feel better. It's not hoo-ha, right? Like it's science. But it's really hard. And there's women probably working through some resentment. I let myself go, or, how did I get to this place and whatever. And so, yeah, the relationships with food and everything has to be explored a little bit before we continue to move forward. And talk about health span versus lifespan. And that's another thing. We might all live long, but do we want to live long in what way, and I think
Exactly. Yeah.
that's the gift we can give ourselves, I think about it that way.
Definitely. We want to learn, right. There's no point in living long if you're going to be really unhealthy and like sickly and everything.
Exactly.
And I mean, you want to, right, feel good. So, yeah. So I think that there is, there can be some kind of like resistance. And I think my next question is like, what do you do with women who just feel really behind? Like, I'm already 55 years old and I've lost so much time on even, and I'm not just even talking about
Mhm.
health and wellness, but all of it, like
Mhm.
financially,
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
didn't have the career maybe they wanted, or, I mean, how do you start with women? I'm sure you talked to some
Mhm.
women who have regret over
Oh yeah.
how they,
Mhm.
spent their lives, or maybe they chose to be stay-at-home moms and here they
Mhm.
are in their 50s and they never got their career off the ground.
Right.
And
Right.
what are they doing now?
Right.
That I'm sure you've got, a variety of different women that you speak to
Yeah.
on this. And so how do you get women to just not feel like that regret?
One place is to find a way to really instill a sense of grace in terms of where they are and what their history has led them to, right? Whatever choices that they made, not make them bad ones. Everything happens and has happened in their life. So just kind of go back a little bit. Again, some of the work we do around change is to say, when were you resilient? Like when have you done things to, do some better things, whatever. Just anything we can do to kind of like instill this sense of you can do these things and you can make some changes now. So for the woman that, regretting losing their career, your career can start again. Like let's put like what you want to do with your purpose and how you want to contribute at this stage is part of your actions. And so that might be the path. For the women who gave too much to her career and they're so bitter about it, they want to spend time with their kids, that becomes their action step. But again, really helping themselves to kind of give themselves some grace is a huge, it goes back to mindset a little bit. And it goes back to this whole thing around understanding your values and then understanding your value. Because if you get really clear on what your values are, like you might have made that choice to step out of your career because your value was your family. So you might regret not having a career, but you made a choice based on your values. So we could do the same thing today to do some of the work to kind of really identify what those values are. Then they can really begin to give themselves kind of some credit for the value that they, know your worth, and the value they continue to bring to make that transition into what they could do with it as they look forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that your values might change. I mean, from
Mhm.
being like a young mother to now being an empty nester, I mean, your
Mhm.
values might shift a lot and depending on the season of life you're in,
Right.
right? But I
Right.
think that's so important to hone in on
Mhm.
what is really important to you because that's almost like your guiding light, right?
Totally
Is it,
is. Yeah.
like your contract almost that you have with yourself.
With yourself, but it gets really lost. It gets really lost in your life though when you are serving a corporate leader or something, or when you're leading a household, full of kids and having to raise them, or particularly single moms or whatever. Like it's all hard. So it's sort of like you might be instilling your values, or that you helping your kids to know what they should value, et cetera. But it is kind of like turning it inward a little bit to get really clear so that you could use those to make really intentional choices about your time, about your energy, about your resources as you look ahead. Because ideally we're all going to live longer and healthier. And so, what do we really want for not just the next few years, but could be potentially like, a third of a lifetime or whatever. And that can be daunting too. But if you can kind of break it down and see that as such opportunity, like there's no telling what they might be able to do with it.
Yeah, it's like almost like a contract, right, that you have with
Yeah.
yourself that like
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess you don't want to break,
And some
right?
of when I talk about like taking little actions, the other thing we try to instill is just trying some things out, like, and not being afraid to fail at them. Because we also, as women, we have this perfectionist thing too, right? Like, because we have to be all things to all people and hold it together, whatever. Like, this stage of our life is listen, if you want to try pickleball, go find a place to try it, let us know how it went, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. Or, it doesn't have to be, you're going to go buy a brand new set of golf clubs and take lessons for the next 6 months. You might go to a clinic on a Saturday morning just to see. Those kind of things. You say, don't be afraid to suck at something new. It's kind of a joke, but not really. And be seen doing it, because right now we don't want anyone to see that we are not holding everything together. But we really won't know unless we try some of these things. If any of these things kind of like light the light that's maybe been a little dimmed in our soul because it's been so long. Things like that. It's what we encourage women to do.
Yeah, well, women, I think, notoriously are wrapped around this perfectionist
Oh yeah.
mentality.
Mhm.
At least in my world, I feel like there's just a lot of perfectionism. I know for myself, I mean, it's like you have to fight that all the time to not look perfect. And I think the fear too, right? There's a lot of fear that goes into just trying
Right.
things. But
Mhm.
I know, like when you do try things and you get, just push past your fear, you do feel really empowered, right? You
Right.
feel a lot better
Right.
about yourself that you,
Totally.
because what's the alternative? Staying stuck where you are? I mean, like
Yeah.
where you don't really want to be. You know something else is out there and you have to go out and try.
Yeah. It just has to be this stage of exploration. It just has to be this adventure kind of mindset. Um, And if we can, it could be just about anything we want. But one of the stories I tell is, a woman that she always dreamed of owning a winery. She always thought in her future she would love to have a winery. When she really went through and did some of the work, and visited one, and she realized that it's just really dirty, and it's really dirty. It's like, I don't know if I really love this. It's a lot of dirt. So, but if we don't try out things like that, she might now never choose to own a winery. But if she spent the next, years dreaming of what this time would be in her life, and she would already know that that's not her thing, she could be moving on to the next thing. So that's why sometimes just experimenting or taking small actions. It also just sort of like reignites, a little bit of more about who we really are.
I think that's a great example. I mean, you have to go and try and not be afraid to fail
Mhm.
or not be afraid to realize
Yeah.
that this isn't for me. I
Right.
thought it was. I mean, it seemed like dreamy to own a
Yeah.
winery. And then once
Yeah.
I got in there, it was like, it's dirty, it's hard work, it's a
Yeah.
lot of physical labor, whatever it is. And I'm not into it.
But if she really got to it, it's like, what did she really love about that idea? She might have loved the community of having people for wine tastings, or she might really loved, something just about why? Okay, what else? Then what else is there? What else could that be that's not that? So, but that's why it could be kind of this sense of adventure. And that's why I love women in community. We can laugh about it, or we can tell each other stories, or we can like encourage other ideas. That's what, we can be of service to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You can share these stories and
Mhm.
be vulnerable and
Mhm.
not be afraid to talk about your fears and or your things that you kind of messed up in. I love that with
Mhm.
the winery. Yeah, it's one thing to be on this side drinking the wine and having going to the wine tasting and looking, making that look all like romantic, but then to own
Mhm.
the winery is a definitely different
Yeah.
scenario. So I just wanted to ask the topic of retirement. I know just in my circle with friends and everything is definitely up. I have a lot of friends who are getting laid off from their jobs now, and they're like turning like in their 60s, and that so the prospect of retiring is kind of up. But I think for my age group, that word retirement meant you just quit your job, you stop working, and then you go like sit on a chair in your house and you watch TV. And it just seemed, I always just remember thinking like, oh, this feels like so bleak. But when is like a good time to start like really thinking about retirement? Is it 80 years old? Is it 50 years old? Do we have to be like financially comfortable? Is there some kind of a timeline that you see?
It's funny. There's not one way, obviously. But what I do encourage is like, I don't know how you first started saving or thinking about retirement, but your model is probably built on something that you perceived from your past or your family, right? So what I'd love for women to do is to be thinking about it, as they get employed and as they're saving money or whatever. Like whenever you start saving for retirement is when you should start planning for it. I know that sounds crazy, but if we could encourage that kind of save some time and energy along the way for everything that's not financial too, that would be great. Now, I also know that's a little unrealistic. If I was talking to a group of women my age, I'd probably be looking for women to say, and it's not even an age because it's probably more related to your life stage, but probably 5 to 7 years before you might be thinking about it is when you obviously should have yourself all taken care of financially, but start thinking about these things and don't wait until you get to your retirement party to have people ask you what you're going to do with your time or whatever. So that would give you, because I tell people the story about college. Like college is like a 4 to 5 year time frame between like when we're growing into our next career for the next 30 years of our life. And we give ourselves those 4 years to explore and be curious and try things out and meet fun people and all these times of life we want to go back to because it was such a great time. There's no reason why this time in life shouldn't be about that long to be getting ready for what is going to be a stage of life that likely is as long, if not longer, than your first career. So people switch that mindset a little bit around it. Like, and it was fun and interesting and like that, like sign me up. Yeah, like I'd want to go to the football games and the tailgates again, or whatever. And that would be but if that's why if it's gave themselves years and not just months or weekends or a workshop here and there, that would allow them the time to explore some of these things full, more full. If you there's like a ton of work to like free up your space, get rid of stuff that you don't need to be able to plan for maybe your next physical move. Who knows? I mean, that stuff just takes time to explore. So as much time if it takes 30 some years to plan for it financially, there is that much kind of time and effort. But, could we do it with a few years? Absolutely. That helps answer the question in a long way.
Yeah, definitely. I think my next question was going to be what's one piece of advice that you wish every woman like 40 and above in their 50s would
Mhm.
hear about planning their future. But it sounds like I think you answered it that we give ourselves the time to really start
Mhm.
thinking about it. Don't get yourself caught off guard. All of a
Yeah.
sudden you're 60 and you're like,
Mhm.
what am I doing? Just give yourself some time to plan and dream
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And like
try.
back in touch with those dreams. And if and find another woman you want to go through it with. I mean, we all have girlfriends that we make time for occasionally, right? Things like that. Or make sure that you've got a family or a partner or a spouse that you talk about it. You'll know that this is going to be something you're going to build into the next few years, because it's important to make sure that the years in the future are planned well and are something to look forward to instead of something with such dread or fear, if that helps.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Camille, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I am excited to just start thinking and dreaming a little bit more and being in your membership group. So I wanted to ask you, how can people work with you or learn more about you? And I know, like I just said, you started a new membership.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, they can always find out more about us on our website, myaspirement.com. And also our new membership is the My Aspirement Collective. Again, a monthly topic driven, low cost, easy, nothing too hard to do. We're going to take one of these topics a month to explore it and again, participate as much as or as little as you can with your time. We'll record some of the things, we'll grab some experts, provide some resources per topic, et cetera. That's what the month's going to look like. And so again, maybe we'll put the link in the show notes or something like that for
Definitely.
My Aspirement Collective. But you can also find us, My Aspirement, on all the social channels, and we've got information about the collective there too.
Okay, great. I will definitely put those links in the show
Great.
notes, and I know people are going to be interested. And I think a membership sounds great,
Perfect.
so women can gather together.
They're busy. So, like, again, I'm just trying to create a forum where people can find us and engage without it being too much of a time commitment or a burden. But women owe this to themselves and their future.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for the opportunity, Heather. Always good to talk to you.
And as always, if you loved this podcast, please consider gifting me with a 5-star review. It is so helpful for me to get the word out on real eating, our real bodies, and real food stories. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye for now.